Hello and welcome back to the Swift programming course. Today you're going to be learning about enumerations. An enumeration is a data type and it allows you to define a list of possible values. For example, as a web developer, you'll often use things called drop-downs in drop-down menus and drop-down items. So a drop-down consists of a limited set of values from which you can choose one, and this is a type of enumeration. Similar to classes and functions and structures, we can create an enumeration by typing in enum and then some enum, which is our enumeration name, and then doing our enumeration cases inside of that. So here's an example of an enumeration. So the compass points on a compass, so north, south, east, west. So let's create an enumeration and we're going to call this compass points, and we're going to add some cases into here. So case north, case south, case east, and case west. So we're giving different cases, different possible values that we could choose from. Okay, so let's choose a value. So compass points dot east. So let's choose a compass point to enumerate, a different possible list of values to enumerate. So that is to show an enumeration value. What if we wanted to assign this to a variable? Well, we do variable, and then we do direction to head, which is our variable name in this case, and then we do compass points dot the compass point or the case that we'd like to enumerate to that variable. So what we're doing here is we're creating an enumeration with 4 or 5 different cases to enumerate, and then we're setting an enumeration value by doing compass points, which is our enumeration name, dot one of the cases inside of it. And then we're creating a variable direction to head, which is going to be set to a value of compass points, which is again our enumeration dot west, which is one of our enumeration cases. We can also do enumerations in a very different way, which is a little bit more productive. So let's give you an example of that. So let's create another enumeration. So enumeration matter, so the matter in science. Let's do case, solid, liquid, and gas. So here, this is where the productivity comes in. We can enumerate multiple cases on the same line without having to do multiple lines, because we know that we're going to set cases. So we're doing the case command, and then we're doing anything after that, which is going to be set to a case because we've done case here, and we can separate different cases by commas. Okay, so let's set an enumeration value to a variable. So variable current matter, so the current state of matter, and we're going to set that to matter.liquid. So we're saying that our current state of matter is liquid. So we could use this for a block of ice, for example. So it's become H2O, which is 2 hydrogen atoms, and 1 oxygen atom, which creates water. So now we can actually check which value was enumerated by that variable, kind of like returning a Boolean type, so yes or no, but stating the actual type. So we can do switch, so we can switch the variable and we can say which variable inside of that is going to be chosen. So we can do case.solid, and we know that this is going to be of the current matter, so we're putting the dot as in current matter dot solid, and then we're going to print the line solid if it was a solid, and then we're going to do liquid, and if it was a liquid we're going to print liquid, and if the enumerated type was a gas then we will print a line of gas. And as you can see, liquid was printed as a line because the enumerated value was matter.liquid, and it can identify by switching this variable inside of it which case was enumerated. This could work for other things like items in a shopping supermarket. So let's do that. So let's create another enumeration. So enumeration shopping items, and inside of this let's do our different cases. So case cheese, eggs, butter, milk, pancake mix, and sweeties and chocolate and we could do a whole variety of different cases, but we're going to leave it as that. And then we're going to set that to a variable, so variable, and we're going to say chosen item, and we'll have that equal to shopping items dot, and then we'll choose an item. So let's say we've bought pancake mix, and then we can switch which chosen item we have chosen. So let's do a case. So case dot cheese, we'll say that we've chosen cheese, and then we'll do this for all of the other items in there. So we've added all of the items from the different cases, and you can see that pancake mix was printed because we've said that if the case is pancake mix of the chosen item, then we're going to print the line pancake mix, and we set the variable to the pancake mix variable, so it identified that the case chosen was pancake mix. And this works for many different other types of topics that you want to enumerate. It's just a way of defining a list of possible values and then choosing one of those values. Okay, so let's do another type so here's another type of enumeration. So we're going to create our enumeration, and we're going to set this to computer. And we're going to define different cases for a RAM and processor, screen size, weight, height, width and height of different types of computers. So let's create a case for desktop, so a desktop computer, and we're going to allow an integer for the amount of RAM and string to be assigned for the processor. And then we're going to create a case for laptop, and for example we'll do screen size. Then we'll create a case for phone, and we'll have 3 integers, which will be the weight, width and height of the phone. And then we'll do another case, tablet, and this will just be the width and height, so an integer and an integer. And now we can set a variable to remember the case from the enumeration. So let's do variable computer, so the current computer is going to be equal to computer.desktop, and remember how we're providing an integer for the RAM and then a string for the processor. So this is going to have 128 gigabytes of RAM, and it's going to have a string of a NVIDIA Quadro FX 2700M processor. So now let's actually check the value of the variable from the variable. So let's switch our computer variable like we've learned how to do, and let's create a constant which will decide which item has been chosen. So RAM and processor, because they're the types of things that we're going to choose, and we're going to say that a desktop with RAM, gigabytes of RAM, and a processor. So we're saying that this is a constant because the RAM and the processor could always change, and it couldn't change. So the desktop with RAM, gigabyte of RAM, and a processor. So we're going to return what has been enumerated, but we need to assign a default value. So default print line, and we're going to say unknown. So if a value hasn't been enumerated, or it can't decide which value was enumerated, then it will be picked as unknown, and it will print a line of unknown. So that's another example of an enumeration. Another example of an enumeration would be planets, for example. This is going to be a little bit more difficult, by the way. So another example of an enumeration would be planets, and we're going to be able to identify which planet has been picked using a raw value. So we're going to have choices from, I think, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune, which are all of the planets since Pluto was demoted and it's now a dwarf planet. So let's create an enumeration called planet, and we're going to provide an integer so we know we can pick raw values, and we're going to create a case called Mercury, which will be equal to the number 1 value, and then we're going to do Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. So we're setting the enumeration cases. And then we need to actually give a planet a raw value. We can do this by doing planet.earth, and then, for example, giving it a raw value. So Earth, for example, has the raw value of 3, and we know this because Earth is the third planet along the solar system in our cases. But we could also do Mercury, which has a raw value of 1, which we've set. So we could always just change this to Mercury, and it would say 1 instead, or Jupiter, and it would say 5, or something else. So we can set an enumeration case and see which raw value within that cases it has. Okay, so let's create a variable that stores the optional value of the planet, which has a raw value of 5. So variable this planet, and this will be an optional planet, so it doesn't even have to be a planet in the solar system. And then we're going to do planet with a raw value of 5. And then we're going to create a constant which will use our variable to check if a planet is found with a raw value of 5. So if let possible planet is equal to planet with a raw value of 5, then what we're going to do is we're going to switch the possible planet, and we're going to enumerate the case Jupiter, and we're going to print the line Jupiter because that has been the chosen planet. And then we're going to provide a default value as well if a planet hasn't been found, and we're going to do unknown. But then if a planet still isn't found, we're going to set an else statement. So if no planet has been found whatsoever, and we're going to say that no planet was found here. So here we're checking if a planet is found with a raw value of 5. Then we're saying what will happen if a planet isn't found with a raw value of 5. And then we're saying what will happen if a planet with or without a raw value of 5 isn't found. And as you can see, the line Jupiter was printed because Jupiter has a raw value of 5, and we set a variable to the raw value of 5. We could always change this though. We could do 7, which would be Uranus. We could change this to 7. We could do Uranus, and then we could also do Uranus here, and as you can see, that was printed also. So the raw value completely depends on the order of the cases and which value each case has. So that was a little bit more difficult of an example of an enumeration case. If you didn't understand this example, it's not the end of the world, but try to understand it because it is going to be useful when we create applications in this programming course later on. And that was Enumerations in Swift.